Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. It's the Word by Miss E. So glad you can join me today. Listen, I got another good word for you, and I want to talk to you about knowing what you have been called to do. What is your purpose? What have you been put into this earth to do? And I'm not talking about, getting married and having children and opening up a business or working really hard and having, money. All those things are fluffs. All those things are frills. Those are the extras. But what is it that God has assigned for you to do? What is your purpose? Why are you still here? Why is it that you can't leave this earth? Because there's something that God has called you to do and assigned you to do, and that purpose has not been fulfilled. Do you know what you have been called to do? Do you know your assignment? And see, a lot of times people think that we have the ability to choose our assignment, but we don't. God has called us before we were born, and He put that thing in us to desire what it is that He's called us to. And you are not going to be happy or truly satisfied until you fulfill the purpose that God has put in your life. A lot of times we think that we can choose what it is that we want to do in life. Yes, you can choose what college you want to go to. You can choose who you marry. There's a lot of things that God gives us a choice. But the calling, the mantle that God put on you was placed in you before, or was assigned to you before you were born. And if you haven't figured out what that is, time is of the essence. If this pandemic hasn't taught us anything else, life is short. And it's time for us to fulfill the purpose that God has assigned to us. The reason why we are in this earth. And a lot of times people want to choose their calling. They want to choose the one that's the most popular. They want to choose the ones where they can still have a lot of friends. They want to choose the ones that everybody is going to be pleased with. They don't want the callings that they're going to be criticized. They don't want the callings that's going to make people shun you. They don't want the callings where you're going to be rejected. They don't want the callings where you're going to be persecuted. But whatever calling God has placed on your life, He's also given you the ability to walk in it. He's also given you the strength and the power and the fortitude to be able to stand up under the pressure of it. So not only has He given you the ability, not only has He given you the power, but He's in the anointing. He has also given you the skill. Now your skill may need to be developed. When you first put that mantle on, or the first time you take on to that assignment, when you first walk into your assignment, it may be a little big. It may feel a little uncomfortable until you mature, until you begin to develop, until you begin to be able to fit into it. Because we have to be careful that we don't think that because we are not perfected in it that we're not called. No, there just needs to be some time of maturing before you completely fit into that call. But no one on this earth can do what God has called you to do. And your purpose is always going to be connected with you helping others. Your purpose is going to always be connected with you causing someone to come to Christ. Your purpose is always going to be connected with you causing there to be a change in somebody else's life. Your purpose is never just self-fulfilling. Although it is fulfilling, it is not just self-fulfilling. It's going to all be to the glory and honor of God. Maybe you have heard the story about Elijah and Elisha, a good story of mentor and mentee, who were both called to the prophetic office. Elijah was the older and Elisha was the mentee. And he walked close with his mentor, and he saw the miracles that God did through him, and he desired a double portion. He desired that type of anointing. He desired what his mentor was doing, but in a greater way, because his mentor was getting ready to leave. And see, a lot of times people feel like we're not supposed to want to do what God has called us to do. They make you feel like you have to walk in this false humility, because that's what it is. It's false humility. When you know God has called you to do something and you know you have a passion for it, you may not be perfected in it. You may not be mature in it, but you know it is a passion and a desire that God has put in you, and you know that you have the gift, and you know that you have the skills. He's not going to give you a calling that he doesn't give you a talent to go with it. He's not going to give you a calling and not give you a gift to go with that calling. He's not going to anoint you to do something, but you don't have the skill to do it. Now, skills are developed. We have to be careful. Skills are developed. When you first walk in your mantle and you walk in your call, it's going to be a little big until you mature and until you grow with God and you begin to fit it. But once you grow in that, you are not going to be able to be happy doing anything else unless you are doing what God has called you to do. You have to learn how to wear your mantle and wear it well. You have to learn how to not let people talk you out of doing what God has called you to do, because you're the one that's going to have the sleepless nights. You're the one that's going to be tossing and turning because you don't have rest and you don't have peace because you're running from your call. Walk into who God has called you to be. And you want to hesitate and look around and give this whole resistance, knowing you want to do it. But you feel that if you are eager to do what God has called you to do, people are going to talk about you. People are going to judge you. People are going to think that you are prideful. But that's false humility. You should be willing to do what God has called you to do, even though at times it may cause you some heartache. But it's going to be much harder on you when you run from your call. Listen, you can't choose your mantle. You can't choose your calling. Sorry. It's already been chosen for you by the Creator, the one that created you. And he gave it to you because he knew you were capable of carrying it out. We can't sit there and say, I want the calling that makes everybody happy. I want the calling that's going to draw a lot of people to me. I want the calling or the mantle that's going to make people compliment me or make people happy. I want the mantle that is going to be popular with man or popular with people. God already chose you to carry it before you were born. And when people try to make us feel bad for wanting to do what God has called us to do, I often wonder where they got that from. And I know that there are a couple of instances in the Bible. Jeremiah, when God called him as a youth, he made so many excuses as to why he could not fulfill the office of a prophet. He said, Lord, I'm too young. Lord, I am not eloquent in speaking. I don't know how to speak really well. But God told him, he said, I called you before you were in your mother's womb, and I called you a prophet to the nations. So we don't just walk along our life and say, oh, I choose this calling. Now, there are some people that do. There are some people that do. But according to God and the way God does things, your mantle is something that has been put in you before you were born. And most people that have been called have some passion for what it is that they're called to. You have to have some desire to do it. I believe that God gives you the passion for it. You might have fear. You might be afraid of what people are going to say, but everyone that has been given a mantle by God has a desire, some type of desire for it. He doesn't give you something that he doesn't give you the passion for. That's the drive behind why you do what you do in spite of being persecuted, in spite of being criticized. That is the driving force, is you have a passion. Some people call it a burden, because if you don't do it, then it's a heavy weight on you. If you're not fulfilling God's purpose for you in your life, it's a heavy weight. That's why it's called a burden. Moses was another example. He tried to get out of what God called him to do, even though he was passionate about freeing the children of Israel. He had a passion about seeing the children of Israel set free. He was just afraid of what Pharaoh was going to say. He was just afraid of what people were going to say. He was afraid of the criticism, but he really had an inward passion to do what he wanted to do. So we can't let people make us walk in false humility because they have taken a couple of people in the Bible who were resistant and were kind of reluctant to fulfill their purpose. And we can't make that a standard, that everybody that God has called has to, at some point, not want to do it. Because if you want to do it, then God hasn't called you to it. If it's something you want to do, then God probably didn't call you to it. You have to not want it in order for it to be legitimate. You have to not want it in order for it to be genuine. You have to not want to do it in order for it to be a true calling. But that's what man has said. And as I recall, Jesus is our perfect example. And when God needed someone to come to this earth to redeem this world, he chose Jesus. And Jesus eagerly wrapped himself up in flesh and became a human and went through the persecution that he went through in order to fulfill his purpose to redeem mankind. So don't walk in false pride. Be true to yourself. Be true to your call. Be true to your God. I hope you enjoyed this message. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this message, because I know there's somebody out there that is struggling with finding out who they are and finding out who they have been called to be. Share this message with someone. Leave a comment below, and we'll see you next time. Be blessed.